for everyone who's not able to join us today. The first thing we're going to go through is just a brief overview of text and email within ThinkView. I know for some of you, you might not even have texting included in your subscription currently, but you're interested to know what does that look like and what should I do to add that. So we're going to touch briefly on that. And then the bulk of what we're going to try to accomplish here today in just 30 minutes, which I know is a really short amount of time, is what has changed with texting and email and why we changed them. The big things are separate contacts or separate campaigns for text and email campaigns, as well as your contacts having the ability to have both email and phone number metrics. So we're going to take a look at what that looks like in the portal, just some screenshots, and again, a little more explanation as to why we changed those things. The next thing we're going to go through is what is required from you. So it's not going to be automatic for your phone numbers and your email addresses to merge. We're going to require a little bit of back and forth and some information on your end to get those merged together. So we're going to walk through a few different steps to get those merged, and then moving forward, what you need to do for text and email campaigns, just to make sure that your recipients their data is clean and that you don't have any duplicates within ThinkView. And then finally, we're going to end with Q&A. I'm hoping to leave even 10 minutes or more just for questions, because I imagine there might be some questions out there. And like I said, that's why we have Michelle and Andrew here, just to step in where my technical knowledge fails me. So they are here to help answer your questions about how to get those contacts cleaned up there. But I do want to touch briefly, if you joined today's webinar just from seeing the pop-up and are actually like, oh, I don't even know if I have texting in my subscription, I just want to touch briefly on why you might want to add texting, as well as if you have texting included, you might only have sent 1 or 2 text campaigns and are wondering, is it worth just sending those text campaigns? How do I do it? Just a little bit of encouragement here. I pulled this quote from one of our blog posts that I'm going to send in a follow-up email. This is just research from Edge Research that found only 34% of nonprofits said that they were segmenting communication based on a donor's age. And that was particularly important when they found that 55% of millennials said they preferred text messages from nonprofits, and only 24% of baby boomers wanted text. So when you are reaching out to your audiences and you're deciding what video you're going to be sending, what the context of the message is, it's also really great to know what medium do people prefer to hear from you in. If they're giving on mobile, they might prefer a text as opposed to an email. And I know for universities and colleges, it might be a lot easier to get videos recorded from students over the summer if you text them as opposed to sending something to their school email. So it's just a really great thing to consider. Who you're sending to might define which method you are using, which leads us into, and I already gave a quick shout out to Katie from Murray State here. They did an amazing A/B test for text and email. They had an alumni invitation. I'm gonna link to that here and send these slides in a follow-up. But basically they split this group into 2. The first were alumni who graduated between 2000 and 2018. The second group were alumni that graduated before 1999. And the message, the video, everything were exactly the same, but the younger alumni received their invitation through text, older alumni through email. And there weren't, crazy high stats of email won out over text, but it was just a really great example of how they met their recipients where they wanted to be communicated and had really great calls to action, clicks from that. Katie can speak probably more to just the event attendance. So I really just wanted to highlight what texting is, why you should be experimenting with it. If you don't feel you're getting the most out of your texting subscription, always feel free to reach out to your success manager or at success@thinkview.com. With that said, let's go ahead and jump into the bulk of what we're going to be talking about today. What has changed with ThinkView? The first thing is, you've probably noticed this already if you built a campaign in the last week, that when you go to build a campaign, it's now going to ask if this is an email or a text campaign. And you can see that on the image to the left here, selecting the campaign name and then email or text. And what this means is when you select email, you're going to see what an email setup looks like. And when you select text, you're actually going to get a really accurate preview of what does texting look like for this campaign. Previously, especially if you're a new thank you user, this page really looked similar for both email and text, even though they do look a little bit different. So it's just a much more accurate preview of what your campaign is going to look like. The next thing that changed is you can more easily search for your text campaigns right on that campaigns tab. Previously, there was just the archived, active, or deleted campaigns tab where I'm highlighting here. You could also look at different types. So if you wanted to look through just birthdays or just donor thank yous, you could look at that. But now you can also look at the delivery type. So you can filter out all of your email campaigns, you can filter your text campaigns, as well if you have video requests, that shareable link video request campaign. So breaking those down so you have a better view of the campaigns that you've sent previously. And then the big thing here, this is a really highly requested feature for a long time, upgrading those contacts so that they have even fuller picture of what you're sending this recipient. Your contacts can now include phone and email addresses, meaning, first of all, the engagement score for each recipient is much more accurate. You're seeing every campaign that you've sent them, regardless if it's to an email or to a phone number. The second thing is you'll have a clearer picture of which medium your recipient is opening or watching or engaging with most. You'll just have that right within their contacts page. And then finally, if you do have a limited number of contacts in your subscription, this is really great. There'll be fewer number of contacts in your portals. For some of you, that might even be reducing it by half if you have duplicate of email and phone for most of your recipients. This is just going to be a really great way to consolidate those into fewer contacts. So what does this mean for next steps to combine those contacts, and what does it mean going forward as you're building text and email campaigns? The first thing, when you are uploading recipients or you are adding them manually, to reduce the risk of duplicate contacts, we recommend that you use both the email and the phone number when uploading recipients. And that doesn't mean it's going to go to both. You'll select, oh, this is an email campaign, this is a text campaign, and it will determine which method to send it for. But this is just a really great way to make sure that you are not creating duplicate contacts, that all of that information is staying in the exact same contact profile. And then finally, combining duplicate contacts. And this is not required, but if you've been a user of Thank You for a while and you've been texting and you've been using email, you're gonna have duplicate contacts within your subscription. So I highly recommend that you get those combined by working with us through these two options here. The first one is to combine duplicates with a unique ID. This can be a donor ID, a birthday, any of those merge fields that you know is going to be unique just to that recipient. And we can use that column to connect the email and the phone number. And we can use up to 4 unique columns to make sure that those phone and email are connected. And any emails or phones that we aren't able to connect, we will send you a CSV so you're able to manually go through and make sure that the right contact has the email and the phone number. And of course, we'll confirm and work with you through that whole process as soon as the duplicate recipients are combined. Now the second one here, I actually think this might be the easiest, especially if you haven't been using donor ID or you don't have birthdays in that portal. That is not a problem at all. I think option 2 is going to be a really great fit. And it is available on Monday. So if you go today and try to do this, it is not up there just yet, but come Monday, this will be a really great way to get that process started. Uploading a list of contacts with their phone and email to the contacts tab directly. So the very first step is going to that contacts tab within your portal, uploading a list of phone numbers and email addresses together in that same column and row for each recipient, and then emailing support@thankyou.com to let us know that you uploaded that list. The email and phone number contacts are in there. They are in the portal. And our team, Michelle and Andrew, our whole dev team is going to work to confirm that those duplicates are combined. Every metric that you had attached to a phone number or an email for that recipient is going to be combined into that one contact. So really, again, just a great way to make sure that you're getting that full picture of a recipient, whether you've sent to them via phone or email. And completely optional, but we highly recommend doing that process. And with that, let's go ahead and jump into some questions. I've already seen a few pop up here. Let's go ahead and jump into chat here. And if you have any questions, feel free to either jump into the chat or the Q&A box, whichever is easiest for you. And if it's easier to have mic access, just let me know. I'm happy to give you access to the microphone. And Jen makes a good point here. She said I had to take all of the dashes out of phone numbers for the import to work. Michelle, if you want to speak to if there's any sort of format that phone numbers or email addresses need to be in for this import, I'll let you speak a little bit to that.
Thank you. So actually that was kind of a bug on our part, and I apologize for that, Jen, but that should be fixed up now. And since, you know, this is a brand new feature that we're adding to our site, if you guys detect, you know, any kind of issues when you're importing your contacts that have a phone column, please let us know and we'd be happy to help you out and address those problems.
And Michelle, I don't know if you're able to click on the Q&A box. I'm having trouble viewing that. So for the moment, if everyone could throw their questions into the chat, I apologize. I think Zoom's being a little buggy. Jen asked, is there a way to freeze contacts in a list? Sometimes we want to address husband and wife, i.e. John and Mary, but let's say the husband is a board member and sometimes we only want to address John. So it keeps overwriting the same name and she has to be aware of that, where the first name is currently. I don't know, Michelle, if you want to speak to just how using first names together works, if there's a better way to make sure that only John is receiving only John's emails and John and Mary are receiving a combined email.
So Jen, for that particular issue, I would highly recommend potentially using a custom merge field, so that way you could have a column specifically labeled, you know, board member. And then that way, whenever you are sending a thank you to the board members, you could access that merge field and then it would address them correctly. I am able to open up the Q&A, Delaney.
Oh, awesome.
So I do see that the first question is, for the second option for the combining the duplicate contacts, do we upload our entire database? So right now, that probably would be what we recommend. But if you have some questions due to the size of that file, because it could be also an issue in your browser just timing out depending on how big that file size is. But if you attempt that and you do have an issue, you could just email support and you could let us know. Sorry about that. Okay, and then I also see a different question. Are the fields for email and phone number already in the contact record? So in the contact record, we have the capability of adding email or phone number there. If you had a phone number as a separate contact, then we would recommend the process of combining the duplicate contacts together. Okay, and I see another question here. Our alumni have more than one class year. Will there be an additional column to include or change the class year field to text? Jane, so currently what you could do to address that issue is you could create a separate custom merge field, and then that way it could be a text field and you could add a different class year as well.
And Madison asks, can you separate contact lists? I'm not sure if you can give us just a little more detail. There is a list feature within ThankView that gives you the option to create lists of contacts, whether it's board members or volunteers or alumni. But I want to make sure I'm answering your question fully. Madison. So if you don't mind, just a little more explanation on separate contacts lists there. And Christina asked a great question. How can we delete a contact that does not want to receive emails? If you know from your CRM or other databases that you have emails that have unsubscribed or that they have bounced and are not good emails, feel free to send us that list of emails or phone numbers to support@thankview.com. And we're happy to, on the back end there, make sure that they won't be receiving any thank yous. We can just turn that off on our end and make sure that they won't be receiving those. And Nicholas asked, how do we handle alumni and constituents who are also faculty and staff? Sometimes we need to send to their personal email addresses as alums, and sometimes we want to send to their faculty or staff email as faculty and staff members. Do we need to have separate contact records, or can we choose which email address we want to use? I'm gonna let Michelle take this one. I believe at the moment there is only one email address, so those may need to be separate contacts.
Yeah, sorry, Delaney. So yeah, actually for now, they do need to be separate contacts. Just because of security purposes, we want to make sure that the contact, that email column is that email that we are sending the thank you to. And we want to make sure that, you know, we're protecting the security of each of the contacts. So unfortunately for now, yes, you do have to add 2 separate contacts for that case.
Awesome. Madison said, got the question answered there. Another question from Amy. When you initiate a new campaign and manually add a recipient with both a phone number and an email, if you have texting capability, will it automatically send the video in both text and an email to the recipient? Or does it depend if you select both text and email when creating the campaign? And can you in fact select both text and email? Great question. It is either or at the moment. So when you put a phone number and an email address into that campaign, it's going to choose, if this was an email campaign, the email, or if it was a text campaign, the phone number. I don't know, Michelle, if you want to speak into thoughts on having the capability to do both in the future, but for the moment, those are two separate campaigns.
For now, since this is a new feature, we are trying to just keep them as 2 separate campaigns. But what you could do is, if you create an email campaign and then you also want to send texts with pretty much the same campaign setup, you could copy the email campaign and then it allows you to change the method to text. So that way you don't have to create and set up the same campaign both times for 2 different delivery methods. I also see a question from Megan. If someone unsubscribes from ThankView, will it be from both methods, email and text, or can a user pick their preferred contact method? So right now, if you unsubscribe via text, then you will not receive text messages. And if you unsubscribe from email, you will not receive email. We are keeping those as 2 separate things because we do realize that some people do have preferred methods of communication. But for now, we don't have the capability of indicating, I guess, which method that particular contact prefers, but that is something that we will keep in mind for the future.
Katie asked, so I load a list per campaign because I query my list outside of ThankViews. Will I be able to query my list eventually within ThankView? I don't know what all is entailed in querying that list and what all the information that your database currently has, but we are only hoping to make our contacts and contact profiles just bigger and better so they hold even more information and you're just reaching out to your recipients in even bigger and better ways. If you want to, yeah, you said as a follow-up, happy to include any data to make that more streamlined. If you want to follow up, you can reach out to support@thankview.com. I also might hop on that email just to get a little more info about what you're looking for.
So I have another question here from Rahid. When we find a contact that opted out, do we let you know every time or can we opt them out without deleting their record? Yes, so previously we had the capability of you emailing customer success manager or the support team and indicating that there are certain people that have decided they want to unsubscribe via email. Well, now you can also let them know if you have a list of people that want to unsubscribe via text messages. So you could just email us and provide us that information and we can do it for you without having to delete them as a contact.